Hello, Pastor Brian here. Not long ago I got an email from a believer, an elderly lady who said to me that she was just feeling sad. Felt kind of alone at this point in her life, maybe purposeless and just sad. And she was crying out for help. Her attitude was, what can I do about this? And as I pondered that and thought about different things about it, in fact, I did get back to her with some thoughts. But it reminded me that there was a time that I taught a series at our church on how to be happy. And what I did was I took the opening verses of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5 through chapter 7. And the opening verses there are called the Beatitudes. In other words, this is the attitude that you need to have to truly be happy in this world. Jesus began that Sermon on the Mount by speaking directly to that deep-seated inner desire in all of us. 9 times in the first 12 verses, he says, blessed or blessed is this person who, and the original Greek that it was written from, there are 2 different words that the English will translate by the word blessed. One is eulogio, and it means literally just, this is a blessing. I mean, this is a good thing. This is a good thing for you. Blessed. The other word, it's a different word. It's makarios. And it does mean kind of literally happy. This is happy. And it's interesting that here at the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, it's that word that's used. He's saying over and over again, happy is this person. So it's interesting that in the opening verses, he begins in verses 3 through 6, describing the characteristics of a true seeker of the Lord. And then in verses 7 to 12, he describes the characteristics of a true follower of the Lord. So the idea here is that when it comes to true happiness, seek Him. And when you find Him, follow Him. There's the key right there. He starts this whole sermon with a message on how to be happy in a world that's characterized by unhappiness. And in doing so, he points out the path directly to God Himself. In Jesus' case, coming to Him. So where does that begin? Where does that path begin? Well, he says right there in verse 3, at the very beginning, the first part of the Beatitudes, he says this, blessed are the poor in spirit. That's the starting point. In other words, when you come to a place where you make a true accounting of your spiritual assets, in and of yourself, how are you spiritually? And you come to the undeniable conclusion that you're poor. I am poor. No getting around it. In and of myself, very poor. How poor? Paul put it this way in Romans chapter 7, verse 24, when he said, "O wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death?" That poor. The prophet Isaiah saw a vision of the Lord Himself. In Isaiah 6:5, he says this about that. He says, "So I said, woe is me, for I am undone, because I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." He said, woe is me. You know what that means in Scripture? Whoa, I'm in a bad place. I'm in a very, very bad place. I'm undone is the attitude that I'm just utterly exposed and I don't have a leg to stand on. In other words, the idea of that poor in spirit is I'm destitute. I'm just destitute. You know, we all have things in our own life that we can be kind of proud of or are kind of proud of. So often we will talk in this way. I know I'm not perfect, but. Well, when you come to that first beatitude, poor in spirit, the but part of that is completely gone. This is me. In and of myself, I'm utterly, spiritually destitute. That's the idea of that. You know, Daniel is one of the most revered men in the Old Testament is for his righteousness. And he saw a vision from the Lord in Daniel chapter 10. He said this in verse 8, I was left alone and I saw this great vision, and no strength remained in me, for my vigor was turned to frailty in me, and I retained no strength. The New American translates that, for my natural color turned to a deathly pallor, and I retained no strength. So he's saying physically, emotionally, he turned to just putty on the spot. You know, he was there. He was there. That's called poor in spirit. You know, no one embraces that condition willingly. Our human nature resists that. I really think it takes something happening to us to bring us to that point. That was sure true in my case, where, you know, I was a Christian back in my early young adulthood, and I got a job at a aircraft engine overhaul company in Southern California. It was a smaller company. I got a job as a purchasing agent, and there were 3 of us purchasing agents for this company, and my desk was right between the other 2, and both of those were admitted total unbelievers. And I was the only one who was a Christian. Well, things got really tough there in that company, and very difficult. And God used that to show me that although I was the Christian and these guys would just have fun mocking me as a Christian, when things got really tough, I realized I was no different than they were. I was exactly the same. And I saw that, hey, I call myself a Christian, but look at me. I mean, hey, either the truth of the Bible is a myth, and I might as well whine, woman, and song for tomorrow I die, or there's something wrong with me. Well, I knew enough to believe that that was the case. The problem was with me. And I think, honestly, for the first time in my life, I humbly and wholly, with all my heart, just sought the Lord. Not churchianity, not theology, not anything else, not the Christian religion. I just sought the Lord with all my heart. And you get to that point, He is so faithful. And in that place of just brokenness before Him, oh, did He come to me. You know, James chapter 4 says, draw near to God and He will draw near to you. And I learned at that point in my life, my young adulthood, how blessed it is to be poor in spirit because of what happens. And it didn't stop there. I went on. God called me from there into the ministry. And I've had the joy of proclaiming the Word of God and sharing the truth of Jesus Christ for over 50 years. But there were those times where even in the pastorate, things got so poor, so bad, so difficult that I was on my face before the Lord, and I felt like, oh, Lord, I can't do this. And I had to make that complete and utter surrender. If you want to Lord, just get me out of the ministry. If you want to remove me, Lord, just whatever you need to do. And coming to that place of utter and total surrender, that's the point. before him, realizing how destitute and empty I am, how poor in spirit I and of myself really am, and just casting yourself upon the Lord. How God positively responds to that. That condition is called being broken. And I think that is so key. I once read a little word about brokenness. It went like this: God uses broken things. It takes broken soil to produce a crop, broken clouds to give rain, broken grain to give bread, broken bread to give strength. It is the broken alabaster box that gives forth perfume. It is Peter weeping bitterly who returns to greater power than ever. Brokenness. Brethren, this is step one. This is the starting place for truly coming to him and true happiness. Happiness that's from God. And here's why this person is so blessed. Blessed are the poor in spirit. He goes on and says, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Wow. Did you hear that? Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Is. Not will be. Is. They're already there at that point. You know why? When you're poor in spirit, you've really come to that place. You are rich in truth. You realize how destitute you are of the greatest need in life, which is a relationship with the God who created you. And you're at a place where all you can do is cry out for the mercy of God, just his mercy. You know something? That's all that's necessary. That's all that God requires of you. Coming to that place, his mercy. But I'm telling you, I think it takes a breaking to come to that place. You know, I think of Jesus' parable in Luke 18, the Pharisee and the tax collector. And he said they both went to the temple to pray, and the Pharisee prayed, "Oh Lord, I'm so glad I'm not like other people, swindlers and adulterers and people like that. I'm not like that tax collector over there. Lord, I fast twice a week. I tithe of everything that I get." And he said over a ways away was this tax collector whose face was down, and he beat his chest and he says, "Oh God, have mercy upon me, a sinner." What did Jesus say? That Pharisee went out just like he came in, no change. The tax collector went out justified before God. He was in a right relationship with God. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Some people, question like, okay, you got to get down to the lowest point, and because now you can't pick yourself up by your own bootstraps like you ought to be able to, well, you need a crutch in life. Boy, that is so not the case at all. It's coming to that place where you finally fully realize, and you've come to that important step one in finding that new life that's in Jesus Christ. It brings you to him. Boy, was that true in my case. James chapter 4, verse 8 said, "Draw near to God, and he'll draw near to you." And he adds in that verse, "Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded." Boy, come to that place of brokenness before the Lord. So, I'm here to tell you, that place is the starting place of true happiness. The kind of happiness that comes from God in this crazy world. And I want to point out to you that he says, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And let me tell you something about that kingdom. In all the ups and downs of this life, it is a place that's characterized by happiness. happiness in the Lord. Well, boy, there's more to it. But that is the most wonderful starting place for how to truly be happy in this life, because it's in Jesus Christ. So, I'll talk to you later. God bless.
My Savior.